Local and live, covering Franklin and Washington counties, it's Let's Talk Tri-State with Tiny and Katie.
Now, as we do every Friday in our first segment, we are joined from localnews1.org by Dan Dedona. Dan, welcome.
Good to be back.
Good to have you, as always. Now, last week we decided to change it up a bit, and what we started with, I'd love to start with again here, and that's some upcoming events and things that folks can do.
We're going to do that. And the key words again are mosaic and motion.
Okay.
All these pieces that we report are bits and pieces of everybody's lives. So, and 5 things to do this weekend. One very interesting one. There's an Arthur Miller play. It's going to be put on at the Potomac Playmakers in Hagerstown. View from the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Highly recommend that. If you've never been to a play, a lot of folks never have. It's just a different experience. If you see a movie, as opposed to actually seeing it with real live humans practicing their craft, it's quite a good show. That's going to be this Saturday from 8 until 10 p.m. There's also going to be, and this is a little bit in competition, also on Saturday, a Christmas experience dinner show. That'll be put on by Antietam Entertainment out at 9745 Garris Shop Road in Hagerstown. That'll be from 6 until 9:30 p.m. There's going to be singing, dancing, entertainment, and apparently a home-style meal. So
Gotta love that.
Dinner theaters, also live entertainment. It's always just a little better than anything you can see on YouTube or TV or even.
When anytime you get dinner, that's great too.
That's good. Yeah, good point. Chambersburg is having a holiday open house. This is part of the transition into the holiday season. At the holiday open house at Quenzig's Garden Center. If you're like most folks, right after Thanksgiving, no sooner do you get the turkey leftovers put away than you start pulling out all the decorations and put the Christmas tree up.
Oh, are you that late when you do it, Dan?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we had ours up last week.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So what happened was at our house was we had fall decor. We have fall decor, but it's such a short season that if we don't get it up right before Halloween, then we just don't worry about it. So then it's straight from whatever was up before. Just bring on the Christmas and plug it in. Yeah.
I think about doing that because it's usually an abrupt shift for us.
Yeah.
Get the family out, get everything put back together,
right,
and then start tearing apart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Quenzig's is at their garden center. They're going to be showing their new Christmas lines. So if anybody's been looking at all that old gear and thinking I really probably ought to get rid of that one strand that's got one half of it that won't light anymore, or possibly update your look for Christmas, they are going to be doing that on both Saturday and Sunday. Saturday from 9 to 4, Sunday from 10 to 2. And Santa Claus is also going to be making a special early appearance on Saturday from 10 to 2. Side Splitters Challenge. Now this is an interesting. There are people who actually compete with one another to tell jokes.
Okay.
And my daughter actually participated in one of these one time. She was actually pretty funny. But so they'll come up with a story, and everybody knows people in your own life, in your close circle, that you just love to go to a party with.
Oh, yeah.
Because they'll start talking. And it's just something about, it's not just what they say, it's how they say it, it's when they pause, it's how they roll an eyeball, it's just 1,000 little things. Well, they got a whole bunch, they called together a whole bunch of people for the Side Splitter Challenge. It's going to be at the Coyle Free Library in Chambersburg. It's storytelling, but the idea is tell a funny story. So they get like 5 or 7 minutes and they go at it. It's really a pretty fun competition. That'll be
basically like an open mic almost for comedy.
Kind of like, yeah. That'll be Saturday between 2 and 4, Coyle Library. And let's see, last on Sunday for people who have different kinds of tastes, between 2:30 and 4 a.m. at the Washington County Museum of Fine Arts. There'll be an Ikebana demonstration.
Okay.
That's Japanese. You probably already knew that, but that's Japanese flower arranging.
Yeah.
They're going to have a professor come in and talk about why the Japanese do it the way they do it and what the principles are. So that should be pretty interesting. In top stories, this one was kind of interesting because you don't often see this. Well, sometimes you see it, but you don't necessarily see public officials blurt it out in public.
Okay. I don't know what this is, but here we go.
Washington County school system for the end of year is projecting a $6.9 million surplus.
Wow.
Now, before you start going out and people out there, before you start going out and demanding recalls and refunds, they've got 11 high schools and elementary schools and everything else that goes with it scattered all over Washington County. So it sounds like a lot of money, but when you start dividing it up by school and all those different categories, it's really not that much. Apparently they asked if, did you do that by firing people? Well, no, it was actually pretty evenly distributed across 13 different budget categories. Plus, they had some money left over from the from COVID that they still haven't spent. So that was interesting. In Smithsburg, we talked a little bit about Veterans Day last week. Smithsburg had a very nice Veterans Day ceremony. About 100 people showed up. It's always interesting, and it gets me excited when I see folks who participated in World War II, in Korea, in Vietnam, in Iraq and Iran and Afghanistan, and one after another they come up and they'll lay a wreath. Well, this year they also had a fellow who's a recently retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel, Mike Bowers, who had a great speech. He's in a position where the notion of participating in combat and fighting for things was very fresh in his mind. So he was really on top of his game. He's a Marine, number one, so he's got to be on top of his game.
Yep.
But it was a good presentation, and they brought out the Smithsburg Middle School band to play music, and it was really very nice.
Yeah, we had Mayor Donnie in here on, I believe it was Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah,
we had him in, and he was talking about that very event that they had.
It was
very moving, very good.
It was very well done. So let's shift over to. We'll skip by burn bans. We can talk about that. That's kind of a continuing theme. They haven't left us yet.
Right.
Even though we've gotten a little bit of rain, there are fires breaking out. I saw pictures on TV of a fire in Central Park.
Oh, wow.
You don't see that very often. Brush fires. In local government, Greencastle has they've been looking for months for a new police chief. Well, they just got one. His name is Jason Patistig. He was sworn in this past week. Washington Township has also been looking for a new police chief. They've had an officer in charge now for about 6 or 8 months, but it takes a while before you actually find the right person for that kind of a job. And in Washington County, they added 67 acres to the Rural Legacy Program. Apparently, this is something that farmers can propose, that we take certain amounts of land and set it aside so that it won't be developed.
That's wonderful.
It'll be maintained. Well, they added that 67 acres to 41,000 other acres that they put aside. So
when we reported this, because obviously Local News 1 sent the story over to us, I made the comment that anytime I can see that there's land being preserved and obviously not developed, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I just like to be kind of in the middle of it without anybody else around.
Well, there's a lot of people who would join you, unfortunately.
That's right. Yep.
You wouldn't be there alone.
Yeah, I wouldn't
get
my wish. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. In sports, three top by order of points, the 3 top drivers in the area were identified this past week. From Chambersburg, Craig Myers, who does sprints. From Waynesboro, Tyler Horst, who races late models, and from Hagerstown, Keith Reed in the stocks category. So we've actually had a pretty good review of auto racing. It just started this past summer, and it's interesting to follow them.
Now, are these local dirt track, like Hagerstown Speedway, those types of drivers?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Let's see what else we got here. And for those who, Penn State football is it's not actually a religious experience, but it does generate a certain amount of fervor.
Yeah.
Well, Lee Royer or not Leroy, Lee Goodwin, our sports writer, has expressed doubts about Penn State's ability to make it to the national championship this year.
Okay.
So if you read that, I'm sure it'll stir you up.
You know, when it comes to Penn State, what I see a lot on Facebook. A lot of my friends are Penn State fans naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really follow college football with any type of, as you said, fervor, or certainly not a religious experience. But it's 1 week there, that was so great. That's exactly what needs to be done. The next week it's fire everybody and scorched earth. And then the next week it's back up to where it was, which I guess is not that much different from, you know, the Commanders or the Eagles, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Ravens fans around here, or really anywhere. But it just seems like there's always that excitement, anticipation early on. They win a game, and it's great. And then the wheels tend to come off.
Well, look at the Lions, my hometown.
Right.
Detroit Lions.
The darling.
Many, many, many years in the wilderness, wandering, waiting for them to finally show up. It apparently just took a coach with an attitude, and a willingness to take risks and let his players play ball and take those risks with him and see what they could make happen.
Right.
Everybody keeps waiting for the wheels to fall off of that.
Yeah.
But so far, Kansas City is another one. They've got injuries. They got aging players. They got. I just read an article last night about how this is perhaps Kansas City's most amazing season. They're still 9-0, and well over half of those games, almost all of them were one-score games, and they had to come up with this week's miracle in order to win it. So
this weekend for them, I think, is being talked about as possibly their first most likely loss. If they're going to lose, it's going to be against Buffalo in Buffalo.
That's a tough team.
Yeah,
that's a tough team.
It will be.
And Buffalo. Well,
and then Detroit you have Jacksonville this weekend, is that correct?
Yeah.
Which, on paper, should be an easy win for Detroit.
Always the worst possible case.
There's so many upsets that happen. You know, Cleveland pulls an upset, so Jacksonville, of course, they're horrible, but it could be an upset coming your way. I hope not.
But now they're fired up, yeah.
They are, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, okay, so also on a smaller scale, this was an interesting story that came up. Hager's in the Keystone Youth Football and Cheerleading League, youth football. Hagerstown has apparently been playing a real good season. They've won a lot. They qualified by one-loss record for the championship. They were disqualified for reasons that we weren't exactly able to figure out.
Could not ascertain.
A lot of parents are upset. There's a lot of rumor and innuendo flying around, but we'll see if we can't come up with an answer to that. Because that's you see that when there's a lot of money on the line,
sure.
but you typically don't see that kind of thing in youth sports.
Right.
So that's kind of an interesting one to follow. Local history. We did run an article this past week about kind of wrapping up the elections. There were still a few that were hanging out. Mm-hmm. We have a local history article every week, every Tuesday, as a matter of fact, some facet of local history from all over our coverage area. This week, Rob Helfrich did a story on the 1924 election, which has some parallels. There was a lot of talk about getting a lot more vote out because just 4 years before, women had been given the vote, so there was an expectation that it was going to double. Turned out the total vote in Waynesboro that year was just shy of 3,000. So it wasn't exactly I don't think Waynesboro was all that much different in population then than it is now. But it's an interesting. It's an interesting review because it talks about women. It talks about the Republican Party being a little cocky, but they still ended up in Franklin County. They won every single contest. Mm-hmm. Interesting things about Calvin Coolidge, who was running for president that year. They called him Quiet Cal. Two things. One, he was famous for not saying much. Mm-hmm. So a reporter said, "I'll guarantee I can get President Coolidge to say more than 3 words, at least 3 words in response to a question." And Coolidge looked at him and said, "You lose."
There you go.
Had a sense of humor as well.
Sure.
He didn't run in 2028 though because his son died. This was back before penicillin. He was playing out in the White House lawn and got a blister, infected, got septic, and he died. And apparently he just lost all. There wasn't any fire in his belly anymore to go
vigor,
to go do what you needed to do. So it's terrible when that sort of thing happens. I'm going to mention this one just in case we get close on time. My wife and I went to see the best Christmas pageant ever.
Oh, really?
Last week. I got to tell you, this is an instant classic.
Okay,
It's
tough claim to make.
It's a great story, well done. Nobody's evil, nobody's super good. There's just a lot of people that are kind of working their way through this thing, and the kids who kind of take over the pageant are extremely interesting. So I highly recommend it.
And where was this?
This is over at not Leitersburg, it's Warehouse Cinemas.
Okay.
Okay. It was great. We're actually going to go sidebar. We're going to go this afternoon and see Red 1.
Okay.
About Santa getting kidnapped.
Oh, okay. You know what? I saw that. I did see the previews for that.
Yeah.
It's
got a great cast.
Yeah.
It's just
Sure.
really interesting people. It looks like it could be a lot of fun. Didn't mean to give a pitch for movies, but
it's okay.
Let's see. Emeritus in health news. We had a great article about an EMS squad from the Halfway Volunteer Fire Department. Saved a farmer, Jim McLeod's life back in June. It's an interesting story because, well, not only did they have the save, and that's wonderful, but the story about how much things have advanced. I mean, they showed up and they started slapping monitors on them. As soon as they started slapping monitors on them, that information was being transmitted back to the hospital so that the docs and nurses who would be waiting when they pulled into the emergency pull-in would already know the status of the patient and what seemed to be going on, and they already had an idea of how to go about and start doing the treatment. So wonderful story about that. Massive heart attack.
Wow.
And they saved his life in spite of it all. In Newsweek, WellSpan, they have surgery centers. Well, they got an award from Newsweek as one of America's best ambulatory surgical centers for 2024. They shared that award in Pennsylvania with the Himmelfard facility over in Franklin County and Apple Hill facility over in New York.
Very good.
We got a lot.
Dan, I'm sorry to stop you. We're over our time for today. But,
okay.
Localnews1.org. Everything that you have just heard Dan go over, it is all available on there. Again, localnews1.org. We thank Dan for coming in here as he does every Friday, and he will be back to join us right around the same time a week from today, where we'll have even more to talk about. Dan, I don't know how you all do it over at localnews1.org, but you're so very talented. So thank your staff and thank you, and we will talk to you again on Friday.
Thank you.
If you'd like to be featured on an upcoming episode of Let's Talk Tri-State, call 717-597-9200 or email letstalk@921thegoat.com.